He was once regarded as one of the world's most dangerous and wanted terrorists, but last week, despite serving 43 years in prison, Ilich Ramírez Sánchez, aka Carlos the Jackal, was given a third life sentence by a French court for his part in a grenade and gun attack in Paris in 1974. The 67-year-old former European leader of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine was born in Venezuela. A committed and determined Marxist-Leninist, Carlos earned notoriety as a result of a number of bombings and terrorist attacks carried out across the continent, culminating in the 1975 raid on the Vienna headquarters of the Organisation of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. The attack left 3 people dead. After years on the run, Carlos was eventually arrested in Sudan in 1994 by US and French intelligence services and flown to France for trial. He was convicted of the murders of 2 French Secret Service officers, as well as an alleged informant, and ultimately given 2 life sentences for this and another deadly attack that claimed 11 lives. In an interview in 2011 with the Venezuelan newspaper El Nacional, Carlos claimed that he, as military chief of the PFLP in Europe, was responsible for over 100 attacks and the deaths of an estimated 2,000 people, although this has never been independently verified. But it was for a grenade and gun attack on a Paris drugstore in 1974 that Carlos was once again brought before French courts. On Tuesday, following a 15-day hearing heard by a panel of judges with no jury present, Carlos was given a third life sentence for his role in this attack. On the first day of the hearing, he proclaimed he was a professional revolutionary and described the charges against him as absurd. So why did the French authorities wait more than 4 decades to bring these fresh charges? And how much of the trial was politically motivated and driven by intense media interest in a figure once described as one of the most wanted fugitives in the world? Well, we are now joined on the line by Francis Vuillemin, who is also a lawyer for Carlos and has worked on this case for some time. Francis Vuillemin, how much of this fresh effort to prosecute Carlos has been influenced by political and media pressure in France?
I think that the influence of the media has been very big in this trial because during 43 years since this attack at the drugstore Saint-Germain in 1974, during 43 years, the media, the press, the newspapers, the television, the cinema, some movies, some TV serials have shown Carlos dropping a grenade in the drugstore Saint-Germain. So the people, the opinion, since a long time, for a long time, that is guilty. So the influence of media, cinema, television has been very big in this trial, in this procedure. Otherwise, I think that there is an influence on the politics too. Because this time there are a lot of terrorist attacks in France, as you know, and in England too, and in Germany too, everywhere in Europe and all over the world. But in France, there are a lot of attacks for 2, 3, 4 years, and the politics, the French government, I believe, wanted to show that the terrorists will be judged at the end of time, even 43 years after the attack of the drugstore Saint-Germain. And it is easier for French government to do this trial 43 years after the fact, because this case, drugstore Saint-Germain, everybody remember it.
And is that not part of the popular culture representations of Carlos? He's been represented in books, in films, and that's played a big part in this conviction, has it not?
Yes. The image of Carlos is really present in France. Because it is very notorious in France, and he's in jail, but people are afraid of him, even if he's in jail for 22 years now, because we remember him since the 70s, since the 80s, since the 90s, when he was captured in Sudan at Khartoum. So it's very difficult in a trial to defend him with this image, this violent image. And Carlos, during his trial, doesn't do anything to help his lawyers, you know. During the trial, Carlos plays his own role. During the trial, you know, He doesn't do anything to help his lawyers. He tells the judge, he says to the judge, maybe it's me, maybe I'm guilty, maybe I'm not guilty. Do you have proof? He describes during all the trial his violence. He showed that he loves weapons very much. He has a very paradoxal attitude.
You announced this week that you plan to appeal the sentence to the court, but if the court was a piece of dramatic theatre, as you implied, what prospect is there of overturning this verdict?
It will be very, very difficult. It will be very difficult. Maybe it will be impossible. Even if we have a lot of arguments, it's not an evident case. It's a cold case, but it's not an evident case. You can't say when you know the case if he is guilty or not guilty. There is a very big doubt on the question, a very big doubt. Before the judge, I didn't say he's guilty or he's not guilty, Carlos is guilty or Carlos is not guilty. I said there is a doubt. With this doubt, you have to declare him not guilty. But when there will be a new trial in 1 year or 2 years in appeal, it will be very difficult. It will be very difficult. It was difficult during these weeks, the past weeks, during this trial. It will be very difficult again in appeal. Carlos, in his life, killed a lot of people. He did a lot of terrorist attacks. He knows that. He claims that when he is with his judges, that he is not necessarily guilty in all the cases.
And he described himself as a professional revolutionary. How disappointed is Carlos about this decision and the lengthy period in prison? Has that altered his ideological outlook?
No, Carlos is not disappointed at all with this life sentence. He has got 2 life sentences. He had got 2 life sentences before the third one. This is the third life sentence against him. He doesn't care. He doesn't care with these sentences. He doesn't care with prison, with jail, He has got a mental of steel. He's very stoic. He doesn't care with jail. 22 years of jail in prison, and he doesn't care with these sentences. He's not disappointed at all.
And what prospect is there realistically of him being released in future?
It will be very difficult in the future years, the question of his freedom, because 3 life sentences for now, 3 life sentences. And the French government has a very long and hard memory with him because he was condemned in 1997 for killing of 2 policemen of the French Secret Service in 1975 and other terrorist attacks. The French government has a very long memory with this type of case when there is the death of policemen. So it will be very difficult. But we can hope that his country, Venezuela, could ask his transfer in Venezuela in the next future years.
François Vuillemin, many thanks for speaking to us.
Welcome, Mark. You're welcome.